Welcome to Biggest Spoilars, the destination for exclusive spoilers, latest updates.
Moment's Occasion was directed by Kate Monsey, who plays Christina Corinthos Davis. Carly drops by Jack's room at the Metro Court with a bottle of wine, which she says she set up in the basement and is one he special ordered formerly upon a time. They sit down and pour some wine, and Jack feels like commodity has come between them, a distance, and he isn't sure what it's about. Carly turns his reverse to him and says she demanded time to reuse the Vaughn thing, and when she's hurt, she pulls back. He puts his hands on her shoulder and says he's so sorry, and he's been trying to figure out how to fix this. Carly admits she's missed him, and she knows she's been transferring him mixed signals. She's floundering to accept who he is, but she's then, which means something. Carly also comes clean that she didn't just find this wine accidentally, she had it hunted down so she had a reason to knock on his door. She didn't have the guts just to come out and tell him that she's ready to put this behind them. Jack is pleased, and they kiss. Will Laura win the election? Sunny meets with Laura in her office. She believes her career may be over after lashing out at Dalton in public. Sunny saw the footage and loved it, and so did the people of Port Charles, who saluted her going to club for her grandson. Laura is relieved but still fears she collapsed her crusade. Laura knows losing this election means handing the megacity over to Ezra and Sidwell. Their discussion shifts to Rocco and Dalton framing him. Laura asks if they can trust Rick to defend Rocco. Sunny believes in this case, yes, as Rick is hellbent on making amends to him. Rick gives Alexis what she wants. In Alexis' office, Rick won't give Alexis a motive for Portia wanting Drew dead without a guarantee that Danny comes forward to help Rocco. She refuses and tells him to give her a motive first or see himself out. Rick relents and tells Alexis about Portia's tampering with Heather's cobalt tests, commodity that someone hypothetically could have learned about and hypothetically blackmailed Portia with. Britt wants a favor from Jason. Jason drops by his, now Britt's, room above Bobby's. She asks Jason to have Danny come forward to help Rocco. Jason would do anything to help, but he can't do that. Now I've Meatloaf's song in my head. Jason thinks that Rocco will grind on these charges, but Britt tells him how Rocco's censure went so wrong, and Danny can prove Dalton prevaricated about Rocco trashing the lab. Jason explains the dilemma Danny is in with Drew and that his coming forward might only make effects worse and shoot his son to captivity. Jason says they need to come up with another result. What happens at the PCPD doesn't stay at the PCPD. In Dante's office, the acting manager tells Lulu that Rocco is in this trouble thanks to Gio. Dante fills her in on Emma and Joe's conspiracy proposition on Dalton testing on creatures, and pulling the kiddies into their plan to expose him. He admits he came down hard on Gio, indeed worse than ahead with the drinking incident, and feels bad about that. Well, that's a launch. Lulu hates what Gio did, but Rocco, Charlotte, and Danny willingly chose to do this. Lulu says Rocco lying to them has come a pattern, and Charlotte's been covering for him. Dante says right now they must get Rocco out of this, and they may have to involve Danny and Charlotte. Down in the team room, Danny and Charlotte tell Nathan they're then to turn themselves in to help Rocco. They go into the interrogation room to talk, and the kiddies unmask all to Nathan about the proposition that Dalton was testing on creatures. They were with Rocco in the lab and all hid when Dalton showed up, but only Rocco got caught. Danny insists they set up nothing and didn't damage the lab. Nathan thanks them for the information and tells them to sit tight. He steps out and asks an officer for Jason's contact information. Nathan soon calls Jason, who's still with Britt at Bobby's, and suggests that he get down then, as this is about his son. The operative also heads to Dante's office to inform him and Lulu about Charlotte. What to do about Dalton? At Windmere, Sidwell and Marco bandy how Dalton is risking their entire operation by drawing attention to the lab by claiming Rocco destroyed it. Marco suggests they should call in help from his father's partner. Sidwell says his mate's identity is on a need-to-know base, and he needs Marco's help to fix this mess. Marco learns his father put Britt in charge, and suggests that it'll only fuel Dalton's wrathfulness, and he's seen and knows too important. Sidwell says if Dalton goes down, so do their problems. Before Sidwell can say more, Britt arrives and asks to speak to Sidwell alone. Marco takes off, and Britt switches out at Sidwell for helping Dalton road an innocent sprat. Back at the station, Nathan brings Lulu, Dante, and Jason into the interrogation room to face their kiddies. Nathan also reveals he's still a little gravel on procedure, and because they're minors, their parents should have been then when they gave their statement. That makes their statement invalid. Charlotte and Danny want to give it again, but Jason and Lulu refuse to let them do that, knowing Nathan let them talk when it would count legally. Jason way out and calls Alexis, who's still with Rick, and updates her on where he's and why. Back in her office, Alexis tells Rick they need to get to the PCPD, as it looks like Danny's going to confess in the show's final moments. Carly and Jack get passionate on his settee, and it's so egregious she easily is into it by her facial expressions. Fortunately, his phone rings and she insists he answer it. He has to head into the office. Carly is easily relieved. She tells him to have fun at work, and perhaps she'll see him tonight. Carly leaves and pulls herself together in the hallway. In Laura's office, the results start rolling in, and Sunny tells her that she's got this. With any luck, Measure C will also burn down in Deers with her election. At the PCPD, Dante is told Rick is in his office, so he and Lulu go to meet him. Alexis arrives and tells Danny no way to speak to the police without an attorney present. Danny insists he give his statement again, as it's what his mama would want him to do for Rocco. Jason leaves the choice to his son. At Windmere, Sidwell tells Britt that he just learned what happened and that he'd no way permission Dalton doing this, as it would bring attention to their work from the authorities. Britt is relieved, but warns that if he doesn't get Dalton to drop the charges, also she'll arsonist their entire operation. Back at the PCPD, Dante and Lulu meet with Rick to talk strategy, while Alexis does the same with Charlotte, Danny, and Jason. Rick and Alexis both believe that, with Charlotte and Danny's statement, they can prove Dalton filed a false police report, and they will flip this and put Dalton, not Rocco, on trial. Directed with a keen eye for intimate drama by Kate Monsey, who herself portrays the fiery Christina Corinthos Davis, today's episode of General Hospital served as a powerful nexus point for the citizens of Port Charles. It was an hour defined by fragile reconciliations, desperate gambits, and the quiet, terrifying moments where children begin to inherit the wars of their parents. The title's themes, a baptism into new conflicts, the encouraging words that mask uncertainty, and the angry threats that simmer beneath the surface, were woven into every scene, painting a portrait of a community at a crossroads. Carly and Jax, a choreography of doubt and desire. The episode opened within the opulent, yet emotionally sterile, confines of the Metro Court Hotel. Carly, a woman whose entire life has been a masterclass in fierce, often impulsive, emotional expression, arrived at Jax's door holding a bottle of wine like a white flag. The gesture was classic Carly, forward, yet layered with unspoken meaning. She presented it as a casual discovery, a bottle from the cellar he had once special ordered, a subtle acknowledgement of their shared history. As they sat, the air between them was thick with a distance that Jax, ever the perceptive diplomat, immediately identified. "Something has come between us," he noted, his voice laced with a genuine confusion that speaks to the complexity of their bond. Carly, turning her back to him, presented a physical manifestation of that very distance. Her explanation was a raw admission of her own emotional blueprint. "When I'm hurt, I pull back." The Vaughn thing, Jax's secret dealings with the man who threatened her family, had cut deeper than perhaps even she had initially realized. It wasn't just the action, it was the betrayal of their foundational trust, a trust that has weathered countless storms over decades. Jax's response was a physical plea, his hands on her shoulders, an attempt to bridge the gap his actions had created. "I'm so sorry," he uttered, a phrase that carries the weight of their entire tumultuous history. "I've been trying to figure out how to fix this." His desperation was palpable. This is a man who has spent years trying to stabilize the hurricane that is Carly Spencer, and once again, he found himself outside the eye of the storm. Then came Carly's confession, the true catalyst of the scene. The wine wasn't an accident. It was a premeditated excuse, hunted down and procured because she lacked the guts to simply say what she felt. "I'm struggling to accept who you are," she admitted, a staggering moment of self-awareness for a woman who often charges ahead without introspection. She was acknowledging that Jax is morally gray, corporate-minded ruthlessness is part of his fabric, and her presence in that room was her tentative, terrifying decision to try and accept it. This wasn't a full-throated reconciliation, it was a ceasefire born from exhaustion and longing. Their kiss, while pleasing to Jax, was undercut by a masterful display of acting and direction. As they moved from the couch to a more passionate embrace, the camera did not miss the fleeting look on Carly's face, a look not of passion, but of profound internal conflict. It was the expression of someone going through the motions, trying to convince their heart to follow where their head has logically decided to go. The salvation of the ringing phone was a deus ex machina for which Carly was visibly, and silently, grateful. Her insistence that he answer it, her quick have fun at work, and her escape into the hallway were telling. Alone, she pulled herself together, straightening her clothes and her resolve. This baptism back into a relationship with Jax was fraught with doubt, and the encouraging words they exchanged were a fragile dam holding back a flood of unresolved hurt. Laura's political last stand, a grandmother's fury versus a mayor's demeanor. Across town, in the mayoral office that has become her second home, Laura Collins was grappling with a different kind of personal and professional crisis. The weight of the election bore down on her, compounded by the public lashing she gave Dalton, the man framing her grandson. "My career may be over," she lamented to Sonny, her voice heavy with the regret of a woman who has always prided herself on maintaining grace under pressure. Sonny Corinthos, however, saw not a political misstep, but a moment of pure, unadulterated truth. He saw the footage and loved it, because he operates in a world where direct, forceful action is the highest currency. He reassured her that the people of Port Charles, those who value family above all else, applauded her for it. This moment highlighted the fundamental difference between Laura's world and Sonny's, yet also their crucial alliance. She represents the law, and he represents a form of street justice, but both are ultimately driven by a ferocious loyalty to their own. Laura's fear, however, transcended her career. "Losing this election means handing the city over to Ezra and Sidwell," she stated, articulating the stakes with chilling clarity. This wasn't about a political opponent, it was about a hostile takeover of Port Charles by a cabal of villains. Their discussion then pivoted to the immediate threat, Rocco's framing. The mention of Rick Lansing as his defense attorney hung in the air, a name synonymous with betrayal in the Corinthos family. Yet, Sonny's belief that Rick was hell-bent on making amends in this specific case was a testament to the strange, twisted loyalties that define life in this town. It was a calculated risk, born from the understanding that a man with a grudge can be a powerful weapon when aimed at the right target. The lawyer's dance, Rick and Alexis' high-stakes negotiation. In Alexis Davis's office, a different kind of battle was underway, a verbal duel of wit and will between two brilliant, deeply scarred attorneys. Rick Lansing, holding the key to a potential motive, played his card with the precision of a seasoned gambler. He would not give Alexis the information she craved about Portia Robinson without a guarantee, Danny's testimony to save Rocco. Alexis, ever the protector, refused to be strong-armed. Her stance was a fortress of legal and maternal principle, give her the motive first, or see himself out. It was a standoff that showcased her resilience, a quality forged in the fires of her own personal tragedies. Rick, perhaps seeing the unyielding steel in her eyes, or perhaps because his desire for redemption with Sonny outweighed his tactical advantage, relented. The motive he revealed was a bombshell wrapped in hypotheticals, Portia's tampering with Heather Weber's cobalt tests. This was not just a secret, it was a career-ending, morally catastrophic act that left Portia terrifyingly vulnerable. The implication was clear, someone could have learned the secret and used it as the ultimate leverage to blackmail Portia into attempting to kill Drew. This revelation reframed the entire shooting, moving it from a crime of passion to one of cold, calculated coercion, widening the circle of guilt and victimhood. A mother's plea, Britt's appeal to Jason's conflicted soul. The emotional core of the episode beat powerfully in the room above Bobby's, a space steeped in history and now occupied by Britt Westbourne. Her request to Jason Morgan was simple in its wording but immense in its implications: have Danny come forward to help Rocco. In this moment, Britt was not a doctor or a pawn in her father's games, she was a woman appealing to the fundamental code of a man she deeply respects. Jason's refusal was a symphony of internal conflict. "I would do anything to help, but I can't do that," he stated, the pain evident in his eyes. Here was a man whose entire identity is built on protecting his family, being asked to potentially sacrifice one part of it, Danny's freedom and stability, for another, the Corinthos family, his de facto clan. Britt's recounting of Rocco's disastrous arraignment, a scene designed to break a young boy's spirit, was a deliberate appeal to Jason's core instinct, to defend the vulnerable against an unjust system. Jason's explanation of Danny's predicament was a heartbreaking summary of a child caught in an adult war. Coming forward could send his son to prison, a risk no father could take lightly. His conclusion, "We need to come up with another solution," was not a dismissal, but a declaration. It was Jason Morgan committing to find a path that saves everyone, a testament to the immense burden he carries as the town's perennial protector. The Children's Crusade, innocents lost at the PCPD. Down at the Port Charles Police Department, the consequences of the adults' wars were being played out by the next generation. In Dante Falconeri's office, a conversation between co-parents laid bare the collateral damage. Lulu's anger at Gio was tempered by a painful truth: Rocco, Charlotte, and Danny willingly chose to do this. This was not the manipulation of innocent children, but the corruption of their innate sense of justice. Dante's admission that he came down too hard on Gio showed a father grappling with his own failings, realizing that his anger was misdirected. Meanwhile, in the sterile, intimidating environment of the squad room, two children were making a decision that would terrify most adults. Danny and Charlotte arrived to turn themselves in, a phrase that should never leave a child's lips. Their confession to Nathan was a flood of youthful idealism, explaining their belief that Dalton was testing on animals and their ill-fated mission to expose him. They painted a clear picture: they were all present, they all hid, but only Rocco was caught. They found nothing and broke nothing. Nathan's actions here were a blend of clumsy procedure and innate decency. His realization that he should not have taken their statements without parents present was a legal error, but a narrative gift. It created a pause, a moment for the parents to rush in and provide the protective barrier their children had so bravely stepped beyond. The ensuing scene in the interrogation room was a powerful tableau of parental authority clashing with childish conviction. Jason and Lulu's refusal to let the statement stand was not about obstructing justice, but about protecting their children from a system they know to be flawed and unforgiving. Nathan, in his way, had given them a do-over, a chance to shield them while still gathering the truth. Windmere's dark heart, Sidwell and Marco's cutthroat calculus. At Windmere, the ancestral home of darkness and intrigue, Jen Sidwell and Marco were engaged in a cold assessment of their crumbling operation. Their concern was not for a framed child, but for the attention Dalton was drawing. Marco's suggestion to call in help from his father's partner was a tantalizing clue, a reminder that the web of villains extends beyond what is currently visible. Sidwell's refusal, keeping the partner's identity on a need-to-know basis, heightened the mystery. His statement, "If Dalton goes away, so do our problems," was a chillingly casual death sentence, delivered in the calm tone of a corporate downsizing. This is the true face of their evil: human lives are merely variables in an equation to be solved. Britt's subsequent confrontation with her father was a flash of moral clarity in the dungeon of his ambition. Her threat to torch their entire operation if Dalton wasn't reined in was the angry, protective threat of someone who, despite her lineage, has a line she will not cross. Convergence, the final reckonings. As the episode reached its climax, the threads began to pull taut. Carly and Jax, their passionate moment ended not with fulfillment, but with palpable relief and separation, a relationship reboot that already feels doomed by its own hesitation. Laura and Sunny, as election results began to trickle in, Sunny's encouraging words, "You've got this," were a battle cry. Their hope was twofold, for Laura's victory and for the destructive measure C to burn alongside Ezra's ambitions. The PCPD standoff, the station became a war room. Alexis's arrival and her firm instruction to Danny, "Never speak to the police without an attorney," was a mother's love expressed in legal doctrine. Yet, Danny's insistence, arguing it's what his mom would want, showed the impossible moral position these children have been placed in. Jason, leaving the choice to his son, was granting him an autonomy he rarely enjoys, baptizing him into the harsh realities of their world. The legal turnaround. In a final, brilliant strategic shift, the lawyers, Rick and Alexis, converged on the same conclusion. With the children's testimony, they could flip the script entirely. They would not be defending Rocco, they would be prosecuting Dalton for filing a false police report. The angry threats of the powerful were about to be met with the cold, precise application of the law.